20th October that just went by was the first death anniversary of probably one of the world's most amazing magicians, a relentless skeptic, an entertaining speaker, and a most charismatic human being, James Randi, also known as the Amazing Randi. James Randi was a big influence on me in my journey to becoming a skeptic, so I thought I would do a video to introduce him to you in case you are not aware of him. Born in 1928 as Randall James Hamilton Zwinge, he was a Canadian-American stage magician and a scientific skeptic who extensively challenged paranormal and pseudoscientific claims. Randi began his career as a magician under the stage name The Amazing Randi and later chose to devote most of his time to investigating paranormal, occult and supernatural claims, which he collectively called woo-woo. And that is the phrase that I have used to describe all alternative medicines in my previous episodes. Welcome to a tribute to James Randi by Pale Blue Thoughts. Although often referred to as a debunker, Randi said he disliked the term's connotations and preferred to describe himself as an investigator. He wrote about paranormal phenomena, skepticism, and the history of magic. He was a frequent guest on The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson and was occasionally featured on the television program Penn and Teller Bullshit. And it was at such shows that he exposed famous faith healer named Peter Popoff using surveillance techniques and eavesdropping into how he actually performed his miracles. He exposed the famous spoon bender Uri Geller and also the fraudulent psychic medium called Sylvia Browne, amongst many others. Although defining himself as a conjurer, Randi began a career as a professional stage magician and escapologist in 1946. He initially presented himself under his real name, Randall Zwinge, which he later dropped in favor of the Amazing Randi. Early in his career, he performed numerous escape acts from jail cells and safes around the world. On February 7, 1956, he appeared live on NBC's Today Show, where he remained for 104 minutes in a sealed metal coffin that had been submerged in a hotel swimming pool, breaking what was said to be Harry Houdini's record of 93 minutes underwater without any breathing apparatus. Randi gained the international spotlight in 1972 when he publicly challenged the claims of Uri Geller, who was a self-proclaimed psychic who claimed that he had supernatural powers of psychokinesis and telepathy. He accused Geller of being nothing more than a charlatan and a fraud who used standard magic tricks to accomplish his allegedly paranormal feats, and he presented his claims in the book The Truth About Uri Geller. Geller accepted the challenge and appeared on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. What happened next was history. As per Randi's advice, the show prepared their own props without informing Geller and did not let Geller or his staff anywhere near them. Geller was unable to display any paranormal abilities, and the result was a legendary immolation in which Geller offered up flustered excuses to his host as his abilities failed him again and again. I sat there for 22 minutes, humiliated, Geller told later. I went back to my hotel, devastated. I was about to pack up the next day and go back to Tel Aviv. I thought, that's it, I am destroyed. In a 1981 appearance on That's My Line, Randi appeared opposite claimed psychic James Heydrich, who said that he could move objects with his mind and appeared to demonstrate this claim on live television by turning a page in a telephone book without touching it. Randi, having determined that Heydrich was secretly blowing on the book, arranged foam packaging peanuts on the table in front of the telephone book for the demonstration. This prevented Heydrich from demonstrating his abilities, which would have been exposed when the blowing moved the packaging. Randi writes that eventually Heydrich confessed everything. One of the biggest frauds that Randi exposed was Peter Popoff, a very famous faith healer in America. On a Johnny Carson show, Randi demonstrated and laid bare the vicious technique that Peter Popoff used to cheat his believers. Randi showed a brief video segment from one of Popoff's broadcasts showing him calling out a woman in the audience and revealed personal information about her that he claimed came from God, and then performed a laying on of hands healing to drive away the devil from her body. Randi then replayed the video, but with some of the sound dubbed in that he and his investigating team captured during the event using a radio scanner and a recorder. Their scanner had detected the radio frequency that Popoff's wife Elizabeth was using backstage to broadcast directions and information to a miniature radio receiver hidden in Popoff's left ear. That information had been gathered by Popoff's assistants, who had handed out prayer cards to the audience before the show, instructing them to write down all the information Popoff would need to pray for them. The news coverage generated by Randi's expose on The Tonight Show led to many TV stations dropping Popoff's show, eventually forcing him into bankruptcy. On a Larry King live show in 2001, Larry King asked claimed medium Sylvia Browne, who claimed that she could talk to the dead, if she would take the $1 million challenge of James Randi, and she agreed. Randi appeared with Browne on Larry King Live 6 months later, and she again appeared to accept his challenge, but again refused to come forth to test her powers. Her reply to that was that she didn't know how to contact James Randi. Randi, using his funny bone, narrated this on one of his talks and said, her excuse was that she couldn't contact me, but she claims that she can talk to the dead. And here I was, a live man, and yet she couldn't contact me. The audience immediately went into rapturous laughter. Over the course of a Skeptic live, Randi exposed many fraudsters who claimed that they had supernatural powers. I will list a few and how Randi exposed them with sheer logic. An astrologer, Joseph Merriweather, claimed that he was able to ascertain a person's astrological sign after talking with them for a few minutes. He was presented with 12 people, one at a time, each with a different astrological sign. They could not tell Merriweather their astrological sign or birth date, nor could they wear anything that would indicate it. After Merriweather talked to them, he had them go and sit in front of an astrological sign that he thought was theirs. By agreement, Merriweather needed to get 10 out of 12 correct. He got none correct. The next psychic, Barbara Martin, claimed to be able to read auras around people, claiming that auras were visible at least 5 inches above each person. She selected 10 people from a group of volunteers whom she said had clearly visible auras. On the stage, Randi erected 10 screens numbered 1 through 10, just tall enough to hide the volunteer while not hiding their aura. Unseen by Martin, some of the volunteers positioned themselves behind different screens. Then she was invited to predict which screens hid volunteers by seeing their aura above. She stated that she saw an aura over all 10 screens, but people were behind only 4 of the screens. A dowser, Forrest Bays, claimed that he could detect water in a bottle inside a sealed cardboard box. He was shown 20 boxes and asked to indicate which boxes contained a water bottle. He selected 8 of the boxes which he said contained water, but in reality only 1 was revealed to contain water. In fact, it turned out that only 5 out of the 20 boxes contained a water bottle. Professional crystal healer Valerie Swan attempted to use ESP to identify 250 Zena cards, guessing which of the 5 symbols was on each one. Random guessing should have resulted in about 50 correct guesses, so it was agreed in advance that Swan had to be right on at least 82 cards in order to demonstrate an ability greater than chance. However, she was able to get only 50% predictions correct, which was no better than random guessing. But one of the major achievements of Randi, according to me, happened in 1988 when John Maddox, the editor of the prominent science journal Nature, asked Randi to join the supervision and observation of the homeopathy experiments conducted by Jacques Beneviste's team. Jacques Beneviste had published a study on antibodies which could have given a scientific acceptance to homeopathy. He even published the paper in Nature, a very famous scientific journal. Once Randi's stricter protocol for the experiment was in place, the positive results could not be reproduced and the study was found out to be a hoax, which led to a huge scandal, and homeopathy started to lose prominence in the Western world. This, in my opinion, was his most important achievement, because all of the other exposures that he did was to reveal the gullibility of the people, and at most people would have ended up losing their money, except in the case of Peter Popoff. But here, Randi laid the foundation to expose a pseudoscientific medicine system which could have resulted in millions of people losing their health and lives. But what Randi is most famous for was the $1 million challenge that Randi ran for many years until 2015. For this, Randi established the James Randi Educational Foundation, an organization dedicated to exposing pseudoscientific and paranormal activities. The $1 million paranormal challenge offered a prize of $1 million to eligible applicants who could demonstrate evidence of any paranormal, supernatural, or occult power or event under test conditions agreed to by both parties. Needless to say, thousands have tried, yet failed to even cross the preliminary stages in any of the cases. Of course, there is the small thing that there is no such thing as supernatural, but for those fraudsters who claim to have superpowers, it wasn't possible to hoodwink a man who himself was a professional stage magician for most of his life. But what attracted me to James Randi was the way he spoke in his talks, many of which are on YouTube. Even though he was in his late 80s, he appears as bubbly as any youngster with his flowing white beard and an uncanny sense of humor which you can't help admiring. He sports a mischievous smile all the time, and his twinkling eyes complement his playful character. Overall, I felt that there was an aura of genuinity about him which really attracted me towards him, and I have listened to his speeches many times over and over without ever getting bored. I highly recommend that you too see those speeches, and I will put out some links in the description box for you to watch. He many times starts his show carrying a microphone which he later reveals is a beard trimmer, and wears glasses which are empty frames. He uses these techniques casually to prove that anyone could be fooled if one falls into the trap of assumptions. He also appeared on a TED Talk where he consumed large amounts of homeopathic sleeping pills as he started the show to prove that homeopathy doesn't work. James Randi died last year on the 20th of October at the ripe old age of 92, but his legacy will be carried by those who admired him. I am one of them, and that is why I made this episode remembering the great man who was a genuine human being, a champion at his profession, and above all, a person who fought all his life to eradicate all supernatural, occult, paranormal, and pseudoscientific claims. Pale Blue Thoughts salutes the memory of James Randi. No, the Amazing Randi, a true inspiration. I hope you liked this episode. I will be back with more. Till then, it's bye-bye from Pale Blue Thoughts.